Hello, friends, and welcome into NFL Daily. I am your host, Tom Downey, here with the latest NFL rumors, news, and a trade item as well that we'll get into on today's show. We're going to get things started with Julio Jones. The trade rumors, unsurprisingly, are everywhere, and there's a new team, at least hopefully speculatively connected to Julio Jones, namely the Cleveland Browns. Sports Illustrated, part of their Browns subsite, pitched Cleveland as a potential destination. Now, as we'll get into more in depth here, the Browns would likely have to make something happen, be it a trade, a restructure, something, or pay cut with Jarvis Landry's contract to make this all work, but maybe Julio could be a fit for Cleveland. Now, in a previous Athletic report, there were a couple different teams who had been linked to Julio Jones that they thought made more sense financially. The Baltimore Ravens, San Francisco, which the financials are a bit dicey there, at least for me. The New England Patriots, the Indianapolis Colts, the LA Chargers, and I'll also make note, the Tennessee Titans, with Julio Jones' new workout buddy, Derrick Henry, also included as another kind of subsection of that report there. So with the Browns, we'll focus on them for today's video here. Should the Browns make a trade for Julio Jones? Get your votes in for me. Type in 1 for yes, they should, or you can type in 2 for no, they should not. Now, with where the Browns currently sit at wide receiver, they're in pretty decent shape. You've got Odell Beckham Jr., who in theory should be back and healthy from his own injury problems this past year. There's the Jarvis Landry contract, which a bit hefty, but he's been a great locker room leader guy for Cleveland, although, let's be honest, he's not as good as Julio Jones if we're being real here. They also have Rashad Higgins, who I like, third-round pick Anthony Schwartz, Donovan Peoples-Jones, a promising youngster, so a pretty decent group of 5 for the Cleveland Browns when it comes to their wide receiver room. Again, that Jarvis Landry contract is a bit expensive. If you could find a partner for Julio Jones or cut him if you needed to, but probably a trade partner makes more sense there, you could definitely find a way to bring Julio Jones into the Browns organization, pair him with Odell Beckham, and I'll tell you what, that is a tantalizing 1-2 punch, if, of course, they are healthy. But I'm starting to suspect that the NFL as a whole, as a unit, is a bit worried about Julio Jones. Now, the production last year in 9 games was good. 51 grabs, 771 yards, 3 scores, but it was only 9 games. At his age, with a history of injury problems at least somewhat out there, I do begin to wonder, is the NFL as high on Julio Jones as I think you, everyone watching, and I am? Like, I'd give him a first-round pick easily. The report from The Athletic was first-round pick was unlikely. That makes things interesting there. So make your predictions for me right now in the comments section. Who do you believe will end up trading for Julio Jones? In fact, I'm going to make this question right here. Who will trade for Julio Jones? The pinned comment on today's video. So if you get the ad break here on YouTube, I want you guys to scroll on down and get your votes in right now. Let's chat Denver Broncos now. An injury update around Bradley Chubb. He underwent a minor procedure to remove what was called a bone spur from his ankle. Now, in the long list of various ailments that a player can deal with, and the rehab time from those, this bone spur removal is not that big of a deal relative to like a torn ACL or whatever, or a tendon or something along those lines. Now, the report is that Bradley Chubb will miss OTAs, and he will also miss mandatory minicamp for the Denver Broncos. However, he should be back in time for training camp, and in the end, that's a very good thing for Denver because they want Bradley Chubb out there, and you know what? They need Bradley Chubb out there on that roster. 2020 with no Von Miller opposite him, by the way, and a team that, well, they weren't playing from ahead all that often. Chubb put up pretty decent production. 42 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 7.5 sacks. They've picked up his 5th-year option, unsurprisingly. The hope and the expectation with a much improved secondary around Bradley Chubb in that defense, which I think is one of the better ones in the NFL, that the 7.5 sacks will go up in 2020. And it also helps, by the way, that, well, the pass rush overall should be a little bit better, given that Von Miller, who we'll get into more in depth later on, is set to return as well for the Denver Broncos. The depth behind Bradley Chubb and Miller is not great. I like Malik Reed. I think Derek Tuska has some upside, but Jonathan Cooper was a late-round pick. I don't think he's going to be an instant impact player by any stretch of the imagination. So, in the end, the Denver Broncos would like to have Bradley Chubb out there. So what I want you guys to do right now is make some predictions for me in the comments section. How many sacks do you believe Bradley Chubb will put together this season? Get your votes in for me right now in the comments section. Folks, Chat Sports is now available on the News Break app. Go download that app today. It's chatsports.com/newsbreak. Go check it out. You can get all the local news you could ever want and need. Because if you're like me, the paper's no longer delivered to you. Not that I ever had the paper delivered, but my parents don't even get it these days. It's not something that happens really anymore. So go download the app today at chatsports.com/newsbreak. Local news, weather, politics, food, pop culture, and of course, Chat Sports videos as well. So go get the app and download it. We'll put that app link, by the way, our link, the one we get credit for and you help support the show as well, chatsports.com/newsbreak, in both the comment section and in the description. Let's chat Pittsburgh Steelers now around the future of Big Ben Roethlisberger. Now, JuJu Smith-Schuster, the wide receiver, of course, has recently said that he thinks this is Big Ben's last year in the NFL, with, I assume, Pittsburgh set to make one more deep, we hope it works out, run with their aging but Hall of Fame quarterback. Now, as we'll get into in depth as well, Big Ben's 2020 wasn't quite what I think he was hoping for. But the hope is, for Pittsburgh, Big Ben, and JuJu Smith-Schuster as well, that this last run is a magical one in Pittsburgh. Here's what JuJu had to say. Quote, being able to play with Big Ben again for one more year, I believe right now on paper, I think which Smith-Schuster means his contract means, it's his last one. I think it is. He's done so much for me over the past 4 years. But as far as Ben, this year is special because it'll be his last. He had a tremendous career for 15-plus years, and it would be great to go out with a W. Now, overall, for the entirety of the year, it wasn't bad from Big Ben. Plenty of touchdowns. It was a bit of a tale of two halves. The first half was, frankly, much better than the second half was. The completion percentage looks pretty good. The yards were fine there. The ground game was a major problem for Pittsburgh. In theory, with Najee Harris and some additions on the offensive line, that will be better as well. But this very well might be, and I have long assumed, it would be the last year for the Hall of Fame quarterback. So let's play a favorite game here. Over or under, and we are including this year as 1 year. Over or under 1.5 more years for Big Ben. What I'm asking you is, really, is this his last year? If he's going to play more than this year, type in O for over. If he's going to play less than that, type in U for under. If you guys want more news and rumors videos and mailbags and trade discussions and draft coverage and everything around the NFL, hit that big red button and subscribe. That way you don't miss out on all the great videos coming out every single day that we have for you guys here at Chat Sports. Hit that big red button and join us right now. Morgan Moses is one of the top NFL free agents left on the open market after he was released by the Washington football team earlier this past week. And now FanSided has suggested the New York Giants should go sign their former opponent in Moses. Now, the Giants' offensive line as a whole is young, and I think there is some untapped talent there. But if we're being honest, and the quarterback does get some blame too, but the offensive line had issues in 2020. And Moses, in theory, could provide a nice stability presence at the right tackle position. Now, I do want to make this note. I think Washington released Morgan Moses because I think they believe the decline is about to set in for the offensive tackle. In 2020, all these stats coming to us from Pro Football Focus, by the way, the production was fine. Like, overall, they played pretty well. The grades were good, especially against the run, but 5 sacks, 13 hits, and 20 pressures on top of that is a lot. That's multiple per game out of Moses. Now, in the end, I believe he is still a starting caliber right tackle, or I should say average at minimum starting caliber right tackle, which there are plenty of NFL teams who could use one of those. I wonder if the Giants count there. Now, Andrew Thomas is set to remain at left tackle this upcoming year for New York. Matt Peart and potentially Nate Solder are all set to compete for that right tackle role. I was mostly impressed by Peart as a young player. I think the Giants want to give him more time, and I wonder if in the end the contract might just be a little bit too much of an issue for the Giants with what Moses might want. So make your predictions for me in the comments section. Who do you believe will end up signing Morgan Moses? Is it New York or somebody else altogether? Make your predictions right now in the comments section. I did want to spend some more time on those two potential right tackle options here. Matt Peart out of UConn, I think has a lot of talent and a lot of upside. Now, he dealt with some issues in 2020, and namely some COVID problems there, but he was always viewed, at least for me, as more of a developmental guy. By getting him on the field in year one and starting him, I think that helps accelerate the development side of it, but it does still need more time. If the Giants, who I believe are desperately trying to win in year one, or not year one, this year with Daniel Jones entering year three and the GM may be on the hot seat, maybe they want a more experienced option. And Moses would fill that role, but they also have Nate Solder, who they got on a much cheaper contract than what he was going to cost there. He can play some right tackle for you. So my expectation in the end is there's more of an in-house competition. The Giants have 3 starting caliber offensive linemen. So because of that, even though you should at least call and see what the cost is for Morgan Moses, I think the cost would be a little bit more than what makes sense for New York with the way their offensive line is currently constructed. Let's go to the Arizona Cardinals now, and Chase Edmonds with some quotes that I very much liked, hyping himself up. He wants to be the number 1 back in Arizona this upcoming year. Of course, he will have to beat out and surpass James Conner in that battle for the number 1 or 1A running back role there. And the fantasy owners I know feel this way. They would love to see Chase Edmonds be freed. He was productive in 2020 in a smaller sample size, but I appreciate his honesty when he acknowledges how aware he is of the situation he's entering this year. Here's what he had to say. Quote, "It's now or never. I finally got my opportunity really and truly in front of me to have a pretty big role in this offense. It's something I've been dying for, praying for, since my first 3 years in the NFL. It seemed like it would never happen, but I finally got this opportunity, and I've got to make the most of it." Now, for the time being, I will put Chase Edmonds as RB1 for the Arizona Cardinals. But I think we very much know it's a 1A, 1B type of situation between Edmonds and between James Conner, who they brought over from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Helping both of those guys, by the way, is the fact that Arizona did not spend a draft pick, let alone a premium one, on a running back. So in terms of being the lead back, it's down to 2 dudes in Arizona. So pick one for me. Who do you think it will end up being? Who will be that quote-unquote lead back, who at least gets the majority of the reps at the position? If you think it's James Conner, type in JC. If it's Chase Edmonds, type in CE. Baltimore Ravens rundown now here around Jaylon Ferguson, as the defense coordinator Don Wink Martindale offered up some praise for Ferguson, who is kind of in that, okay, it's time to break out now type of role. Former day 2 pick, has shown some flashes. The opportunity is certainly there now for Jaylon Ferguson, given some losses in other areas, namely Matthew Judon and Yannick Ngakoue. I think that this is supposed to be, at least it should be, the breakout year for the 3rd round pick, 85th overall out of Louisiana Tech. Here's what his DC had to say. That's Don Martindale, by the way. Quote, "I'm really happy with what we have right now and where we're going with it. He's in great shape. His mind's in the right place. He's working on the right things that's going to help us win." Now, quick aside here, that is the just copy-paste quote coach speak. You can say about every single player, oh, he's great shape, great mind, best shape of life right now, he's working on all the right things. That doesn't mean much to me. But the flashes I've seen out of Jaylon Ferguson are fairly intriguing. 2020, 30 tackles, 2 sacks, an impressive 7 tackles for loss. I do like him in run support. As you might suspect, I want to see more out of him in the pass rushing department, where the Ravens need the most immediate help after losing Matthew Judon and Yannick Ngakoue. So get your predictions in for me in the comments section right now. How many sacks do you think Ferguson will put together this year? Is he going to be able to double his high of 2.5? Can he get to 5 sacks here? Can it be even higher? Make your predictions right now in the comments section.